So how do you get that mindset though? Because a lot of people aren't built to just start because they feel like they have to have at least 90% of the knowledge of before they go in.
Uh, I don't really have an actual like mentor or somebody around me be like, yo, just do it. But I feel like it kind of was always within me. But then at the same time, I binge watched podcasts for like a year or two prior to me buying my first property. And I feel like that was kind of my mentorship. I done heard about 80 different people starting in real estate. Okay, this is where he went wrong, this is where she went wrong, this is where they went wrong. It's like they was okay. So it's like that kind of gave me the confidence to start just because it's like, once you hear so many different stories, especially people of your own kind, started and figuring out it's like, hey, why can't I?
Welcome everybody back to another exciting show of the About That Wallet podcast, where we talk about the building your strong financial behaviors so you can have a wonderful, wonderful life. All right, so today's guest is Tramaine Robinson from 9 to 5 Landlord 414, and he is going to dive directly into so many different things about how he started in the real estate, how you can actually start buying your first property, and also about the different courses that are available to you. You just have to stay to the end of the show to get all that information. How you doing today, Tramaine?
I'm good, bro. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. So can you just tell us a little bit about your money story? Like how did you get started in finances in general?
Okay. Just a little background. I went to Bradley Tech High School. I didn't really take school serious at all. After freshman year, after I stopped playing basketball, I didn't take it serious. So I graduated high school like a 1.6. That was kind of like my cumulative. I didn't really know what I was going to do for college. I just know I took the test, the entrance test, and I scored really high in math. And it was like, hey, have you ever thought about doing accounting? Accounting is really just numbers, and I always like numbers. So that's kind of what led me to that. So then I ended up going to a technical college for my associates and then transferring to a 4 year and then getting my bachelor's in accounting. And then that's kind of how I start my, I don't know, finance career or income. So
Okay. Well, I mean, that's good that they found out something for you early versus, you just sitting there a little later. I mean, granted, high school is kind of late, but for all of us, you
yeah,
know.
yeah, for sure.
So, can you talk about your business right now? Just like, what is your purpose for your business?
Okay, so just a background. I am an accountant. I have 8 rental properties between me and my lady. I mean, 8 rental units, and my business is called the 9 to 5 Landlording 101 for beginners. So pretty much what it is a lot of times when I talk to others about potentially getting into real estate that have jobs, they say, "Oh, well, I don't want to get a phone call at 4 in the morning," or "I don't want to deal with a crazy tenant." And it's like, you don't have to if you implement certain, causes and procedures. And this course is kind of just a background to what I do as far as implementing procedures when it comes to tenants. So that way I'm able to focus on my 9 to 5.
Wow. So, and then also for the people that are listening, in case they want to start getting into this whole real estate thing, your business actually got some through that whole process.
So what my business is, it's a course that literally teaches once you have the property, how to manage it while having a job. So it's not about the actual buying process. It's about, okay, you found the property you bought, you're taking over it. Okay, I have a vacant unit. How do I figure out how I'm going to price it? How do I figure out my tenant requirements? Because if I get 50 applications at one time, who do I know to go to? What's my minimum income requirements, credit score, and things of that sort, and just ways to properly vet.
Okay, so give us one of the main examples on so we did get our first property. What is one of the things that we need to know to try to make sure that we're not getting a bad tenant? Because that's one of the things that you hear a lot. It's like, yeah, they're gonna trash my place. They never gonna pay their rent. I don't even know if I should trust what they say is their credit score. So can you kind of walk us through that process, that vetting process?
Okay. So what I teach in my course is after you price your rental, establish your tenant requirements. And your tenant requirements usually come down to 3 things that you want to establish: minimum credit score, your income to rent. So if your rent is $1,000 and they have I don't know, $3,000 in gross income. That's 3 times the rent income ratio, and just the overall background. So that way, if you get somebody that meets 2 of the 3, you can cross them off. Or 1 of the 3, you can cross them off and kind of move on and still keep your place out there.
Nice. So do you do with people that are in Section 8, or I know they still don't call it Section 8 now, it's more like affordable housing?
I have not yet. All my tenants have been what I would like to call marketplace tenants, as in they just have jobs and they're using their job income to pay for their rents 100%.
Well then, that's interesting. Maybe we can probably talk about that when you decide to get your first one.
Okay.
Right. So, with the business venture and getting everything started, can you talk about your first property and how did that go?
Oh yeah. My first property was scary. Actually, this was, I believe, 2019 October. I told myself I was gonna wait till next July to, I don't know, be ready to buy a property. And then, a friend of mine was like, it might be right now. You just got to be ready. And about a month later, my realtor has talked about a former client he had that had a triplex for sale, but he was going to do off market, which means it wasn't going to hit the MLS. Once that happened, I ended up buying it for about $172,000. It was a triplex, and then there was a 45-day closing process, and during that closing period, I almost got out of the deal 5 different times. I didn't know how to read an inspection. They were saying certain things within the inspection report that's kind of in real estate lingo. And if you're not familiar with it, it can really scare you. Like, oh, the electrical something, 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 or the plumbing, something. My head, I'm like, I got to be at least 10,000. No, I'm out. I'm good. Right. So I almost pulled out about 5 different times prior to actually closing. But once I closed and received my rent check that day, it was one of the best feelings I ever had.
So talk us through, so now that you have this property, and were they already, you said there was already tenants in there?
Yep. So it was a triplex. It was fully occupied. Wow. So to kind of go deeper into it, the first month, so the day I closed on our property, which is on the 2nd of January, I had to introduce myself to the tenants, give them new leases, and ask them for money, as in the rent, which is like, how do you ask somebody you don't know for money? It was the most weird thing. I don't know what I was saying. I probably was stuttering. I don't know what was coming out of my mouth, but I just know when I walked out of there with 2 rent checks, and it was like, yo, this is crazy. Like, I just walked out of here with $1,200 in, rental income, and I go back to work. It's like, I got to stay here 5 more days just to get that.
Right.
So, your psyche starts to change once that happens.
So what happened with that third tenant? Like, did you go back and
so she ended up paying that month, but the following month, which, I'm banking, I'm thinking everybody going to pay. It's going to just be good. She didn't pay, and she didn't answer her phone. So the 6th of the month, I literally had to, it was a Friday. I remember like it was a Thursday. I remember like it was yesterday. I literally left on my break to go to the property, nervous as is, to knock on her door and be like, yo, what's up? Like, what's going on? And I get there and she's like, oh, well, I'm moving. And I'm like, moving? When you moving? She was like, tomorrow. And I'm like, huh? I thought in the lease paperwork I gave you, got to give me at least 30, 60. Then she's like, no, I have to go. And that kind of just taught me that, people are going to follow whatever rules they feel like they need to follow when it comes to, tenants. So she moved out that next day. Like I said, I thought I was going to have this money, just this free fall of money. And now my highest paying tenant is moving out tomorrow. So I get off of work the next day. I went there at night. I remember it was the winter, so it get dark at 5 o'clock. So there's barely any lights in this unit. I'm walking through it. I hear the horror stories about people hoarding. I'm like, hello, making sure nobody, in the back sleep in the closet or something. And I just remember thinking like, man, I got to figure this out. And, I started to do it piece by piece from, okay, let's get the trash removed. Who does trash? Okay, let me call this number. Oh, paint. Okay, we can paint, which was the worst experience of my life, but we did it.
Okay.
And then, as we pieced the unit together, it was like, hold on, our lease was about to run out at the apartment we was at. It was like, hey, why don't we just stay here? Because my mortgage was around $1,300 and the 2 units upstairs was paying that same amount. I'm like, we could live down here for free and we making a unit to what we want it to be. So that's what we ended up doing.
Man, you make it sound so easy though.
Oh no, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. Trust me.
Did you like knock on the door like with a suit on, or did you? Because I'm
I'm
thinking
leaving
about
work.
like,
I have on my work attire, a dress down, some slacks, and some shoes, man. And I'm in
right,
a rush. Like it took me 20 minutes to get here. I got a 40-minute break.
right.
I need to know what's going on. So when she told me she was moving, I was kind of frozen. The whole drive home, I'm like, she's moving. I gotta clean this out. I gotta paint it. I don't know about none of this stuff outside of HGTV.
And it only takes an hour for them to open, close, and fix up a house, and
Oh, yeah,
everybody's
that's what I'm
happy.
saying. 2 days. The sun
Right,
will go up, sun go down. It's ready for sale, man. That's what
right.
I thought. And then, it ain't until you start painting and being like, okay, we done with this room. And then my lady like, oh, no, we got to put on 4 more coats. I'm like, 4 coats? We just painted it.
There were 4 coats.
Yeah. So, it's one of those, man.
Man. Yeah, I can't imagine, because I was actually looking into getting rental property myself, and that's one of the things um, and that's what brings your story to come to light. Is like, all right, how do you actually approach this? Did you actually say like you are now the owner and you like, oh, just pay me? Or did you say, hey, this company owns it and I'm here to collect the rent for
I
the
had no
month?
choice because when I was seeing the property with my realtor, they knew, okay, that's the guy that was seeing the property with his realtor.
Gotcha. Well, at least you had that familiarity.
Right.
Within a shot. So, you talk about house hacking a little bit. Some guests are familiar with it. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Okay. So the concept of house hacking is staying within the place, whether single family or duplex, and the other people living within that unit paying for your rent. So this could be you buying a duplex, and let's say your mortgage is $900 and charging the people upstairs $900, they'll be covering it. Or having a single family where your mortgage payment is $1,000 and it's a 4-bedroom, but then you rent out the other 3 bedrooms for $350. So long story short, it's just turning your tenants into your mortgage payers.
So in other words, you don't need to actually be a baller to buy property.
No.
Just have people pay for it.
Listen, for anything you want to do, you ain't got to be a baller to start. That's my whole thing. I tell people a lot of times when people go into it, they look at, these big dogs that got 400 or 500 units. I'm like, man, listen, man, you can only start with 2 or 4, 9 times out of 10. Especially coming from the backgrounds that we coming from as far as, economic wise, it's like, man, just start. Like, ain't no perfect way to start. You just start.
So how do you get that mindset though? Because a lot of people aren't built to just start, because they feel like they have to have at least 90% of the knowledge before they go in.
I don't really have an actual like mentor or somebody around me be like, yo, just do it. But I feel like it kind of was always within me. But then at the same time, I binge watched podcasts for like a year or two prior to me buying my first property. And I feel like that was kind of my mentorship. I done heard about 80 different people starting in real estate. Okay, this is where he went wrong. This is where she went wrong. This is where they went wrong. It's like they was okay. So it's like that kind of gave me the confidence to start, just because it's like, once you hear so many different stories, especially people of your own kind, started and figuring out, it's like, hey, why can't I?
See, and that's one of the things a lot of people usually skip over is the education piece. And not realizing that you don't have to have a physical mentor. You can utilize podcasts as your mentor. Utilize audiobooks or even YouTube, or everybody like YouTube University. I know I do. So
For sure.
like sign me up quick. So from your experience, like what is it that kind of separates people from being successful in just switching over to that 9 to 5 realtor, or to just do this as a whole?
Urgency. I feel like a lot of times people have jobs, but it's not urgent. Like a lot of times people will wait for something catastrophic to happen within the job before they realize, hey, maybe I shouldn't invest. Like, oh, I was waiting to get a promotion. I didn't get the promotion. Man, I'm ready to invest. Or, hey, they just cut my hours at work. Man, I need to invest. It's like you can't wait for your work situation to get worse to realize to put yourself first. It's like put yourself first and let whatever happen within the 9 to 5 happen within the 9 to 5.
Yeah, that right there. I mean, if you think about it, like a lot of people just kind of just let things go, man.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine that was he was waiting on a promotion from his job. They ended up giving it to somebody else. And now he got so mad, he created a YouTube channel. I'm like, you should have been did that. Like,
Right.
don't wait for your job to tell you you're not getting no money for you to go get you some money.
Mm-hmm. That is so true. The only thing about, like, for me, because when it comes to creating this podcast, was because my wife got tired of me talking to her about it, finances. So I was like, well, somebody gonna listen to finances.
That's a fact.
Because it's a lot of podcasts out there, like you said, and I listen to a lot of them, but a lot of them don't. They already talk to people that are, already in the multi-millions, and I'm trying to get the everyday person that are either just getting started, or they started or on their way to their several million. I had several $1 million people on here, but it's just more so of getting into the mindset that, no matter where you are, you can start. Is it ever too late to kind of get into this real estate?
No. It ain't never too late, man. It's never too late to see the blueprint that's gonna change your life. Like, your first deal, you're not gonna get rich and you're not gonna be able to retire from your job, but you can see the footprints to what it takes to get to that level, right? So my first place, I probably, if that got done, I was cash on $1,000, which is, $1,000. We ain't moving to $1 million house, but I could see the blueprint that, hey, if I do this 15 more times, $15,000, and it's not even taxed the same, that's 180,000. Don't doctors make that? So now it's just to change your whole mind frame on how you look at scaling and just going up.
Now you bring up a good point, is to actually try it. And if it doesn't work. Now, what if real estate didn't work for you? What would you have done?
I would have tried something else.
Okay.
I would listen to the other 80 podcasts I listened to. Okay, what did he do? He did trucking. Okay, what's trucking about? Let me buy a course on trucking and see if that's about. See, my whole thing was I'm determined to make it happen, like regardless of how it comes. Like, when it comes to my job, I've never been promoted within the workforce, right? So you got to think, it's two mind frames that go into that. I could either put my life on hold and wait on that promotion, or I could do things outside of that and within my real life to promote myself. So that was always my whole thing. I'm going to do something that's going to supplement me being the manager or, being at that other level.
See, and I had a discussion about this on over Thanksgiving, and one of the questions that came up was motivation. Should you be motivated to do better? Because they're talking about like how technology is replacing a lot of people in their workforce. And with that discussion, I was like, well, they need to figure out a way to pay for their food and family. Everybody will find a way if they really, that will be their motivation to get them moving, if they know this is coming. But the other guy was like, well, why should they have to be motivated to do something? And I was just thinking like, well, this is a capitalist society. You should be willing to put your best foot forward, and it seems like you actually found that motivation within self. So have you came across people that are not motivated and trying to motivate them into real estate and say, this is what I'm doing, you can do this too?
Spend my whole 20s doing it. Still in my 20s. But yeah, that's kind of what it is. It's like, when, as African Americans, I feel like we lacking information. So it's like the minute I get the information, I'm trying to spread it like wildfire. Like, yo, listen, I bought my first place, this, and that. But one thing I can say is that, especially my family specifically, they might not took action at first, but over time, seeing me do it and really talk about it, it's led the others get into it. So I would just say, for anybody out there that feel like their friends or family isn't listening, just, vouch by actually doing the work, and, eventually they'll catch on. They will.
Now, do you actually have them do certain parts in the real estate now? Like somebody will just go around collecting the rent, or how do you?
Oh, no. Okay. So, that's like a two-part answer. So one, my family, they've just invested on their own and bought their own duplex. So then by doing that, they end up, maybe checking out my course and seeing what it's like being a landlord so they can get the procedures. And that's kind of what I teach in my course. Like, hey, if you don't live with the property, Cash App, Venmo, or get you a P.O. box and have them mail it to you. I'm not with the rent pickups. I don't want nobody to be able to time me and be like, yo, the third, he gonna be there. He gonna have that check. Like, nah, I'm from Milwaukee, bro. It's you got to play it a little more safe than that. So I teach that, like, don't ever go to pick up rent in person, especially cash.
Okay. So do you have like a particular, I know you said Cash App, Venmo, or the PO Box. Is there like a rental platform that you guys using now, or you still
Oh
using
no,
those?
no. I mean, honestly, it's whatever works for the tenant. So the tenant, I'll have some tenant, they have a cash app. Hey, okay. The first I just get a cash app. Then I have some that's a little older and they get money orders and it's like, okay, we'll mail it to this PO box. And then when I get it, I'll just cash it. So honestly, I don't have a specific, I don't think my portfolio is at the point where I have to have a specific platform to collect, but I just do whatever works with the tenant because it's all the same to me.
That makes sense. Hey, loss is coming in one way or another, right?
It's gonna come in regardless, man.
Yeah. So I know you guys said 8 properties for right now. So what's well, 8 doors. So what's the next venture for you both?
Um, Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. When I got into real estate, my whole thing was I will want my rental cash flows to pay for my ideal house.
Mhm.
And I feel like I'm kind of getting to that point. So I might end up getting a single family. I believe in duplexes apartments the last 5, 6 years. And it's kind of getting tiring. But I just picture ourselves just scaling up on the real estate and just diving into it more and buying more properties.
Nice. So because one of the things I was looking into, which is the home warranty process. Do you actually use that on any of the properties? So you don't have to actually call like another plumber or so forth, and they just call one number?
I'm in the steps to getting it. This a friend of mine had just mentioned that to me as far as how she protects it. So I'm kind of in the steps of following up and actually putting those on my actual properties.
Nice. Yeah, because I was worried about that, like how you said, because I was listening to you on Instagram and you were mentioning like you couldn't sleep that first night because you're worried about like something had happened, like if there's a fire or if the toilet goes down, you're the one that's gonna be waking
That's
up
the
about that.
thing. Like I was talking to a friend of mine who was buying his first, and he's 29. He like, yo, I don't know, some. I was like, man, how long you been on Earth, man? He's like
Right,
29 years. I'm like, how many different houses have you lived in? He was like, probably 12.
right.
I'm like, it ain't till you own something that you think stuff that never happened to you is gonna happen. Like, yo, what if a hurricane come? Like, we in the Midwest, we can't even get hurricanes.
He said the whole hurricane.
Yeah. So it's just like, a lot of times when you're the first to do something, you're gonna overthink it to the extremity. And it's gonna probably be the worst case scenario when you overthink it. But you just kind of just think it through and just see your vision through.
Okay.
And just know that uncertainty come with it. That's why most don't do it.
Do you actually keep cash on hand? Like, because obviously, buying the first one is scary. Like, how much money do you think cash on hand they should have after they finish closing, just in case something breaks?
So, okay, I'm gonna give you the truth, and then I'm gonna give you what I actually did. So the
Okay.
truth is, you probably want to have, I would say, 6 months of what the mortgage is, just put away in reserves. But honestly, for me, when I bought the property, I probably had 2 to 3 thousand left.
Mhm.
But the thing is I knew my first payment wasn't due for 60 days, and it allowed me to collect rent 2 months straight. So I just put all of that away.
Gotcha. So you played the time game. I like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the first payment I do for 60 days, I close on the first. Okay, I'm gonna collect this month and I'm collecting next month, and then my mortgage is due.
Smart. Okay.
What I preach, if you have a house hack, is treat it like a single family. And what I mean by that is pay the mortgage out of pocket, like it's just you living in there, and then stack those rents for a whole year. And you can decide to either keep that in reserves or buy your next property.
That is a good tip. Oh, you got any more tips that, that people could take away?
Oh
Just one
yeah.
more,
I
one
mean,
more.
I got this from Tide Capital, but he had said one thing one time. He was like, start now, get fancy later. And that's the logic I apply on everything from me going live, courses, and just speaking, or just, starting with any investment field. Start now, get fancy later. Like, people hit me up and sometimes like, yo, I'm thinking about buying the building. Should I put in an LLC? I'm like, it's just your first building, man. Just buy it in your name. You can figure out all that other stuff later.
Yeah, I heard about that. You can put the business on the title late,
You,
like after
you,
you already closed on it.
you can't do that in the FHA. So if it's an owner occupant home, you cannot because they're saying that you're owner occupying it. So you can't put it in the business name.
That makes
That's
sense.
why I just tell most to just start now. You can work out the kinks as you go. You'll have time. You got 30 years.
Like, yeah, 30 is a long time. Um, All right, cool. So, I mean, coming down to the features of just trying to see how life has treated you so far. Where do you see yourself within like the next 2 to 3 years?
Retired out of the
Nice.
9 to 5. Just kind of creating content, podcast potentially, and just teaching those and teaching more. Just as far as, even when I'm out of the 9 to 5, I could still teach it because I was within it for 10 years. So I know what it's like, when you got to leave your job to go get an inspection report or this, and that. So I kind of just see myself teaching, producing content, scaling up on the real estate, and just finding more ventures to invest in. That's, my income grows.
Nice. I actually have a guy coming on. Well, I'm recording it in like 2 weeks, but it probably won't come out till later next year. Talking about syndication through
Mm.
smaller syndication. So people that don't have the $10,000 just ready to drop right now. And I think that would be something to kind of check into. It's talking about like cloud, then they call it Cloud Castle, and it's pretty cool, interesting concept. But I'll say definitely tune in for those of you who are listening to that episode once it comes through. All right, so yeah, it seems like we're flying through these. Is there anything else before we dive on over to the 4 questions?
I don't have anything else. Unless you ask it, but then I don't got nothing else.
You know what? Before we even dive into them, we can talk about your experience, what you had with the DJ Envy event. If you can talk about that a little bit.
Oh man, yeah, I could talk about that, man. So what it was is that DJ Envy and Caesar, Flipping NJ, they were having these real estate seminars in these different cities in different states. And he had posted about a VIP experience where it's like you get to fly on a jet with them, you get to ask them, all your questions, and kind of really get those real estate questions off. And they had the first one coming up. I think it was in Florida. No, it was in Atlanta. And my guy had went, and he was the only one that went. He's the only one that had booked it. My guy 103 Mall, shout out to Mall. And he had came back and told me about it. And I was like, man, I just missed out. This is crazy. He's telling me how, he's able to ask those questions and really get those answers to knowing how to get to that next level. So they end up doing it again when they was going to Orlando. And mind you, I'm not the richest. I'm not this big guru. So, it was a little tight, but I'm like, if I want to get this knowledge, I should just, pay and take that risk. So I go. It was actually the first flight I ever booked, honestly.
Wow.
The first flight I ever took was from there to down to the seminar. And I got to ask all my questions. I told them about a deal I was actually under contract for. And I was talking to Caesar, and he was like, no, that's a bad deal, fam. And I was crushed. I'm like, huh? I closed on this property in 2 weeks. He's like, nah, man, it's a bad deal, man. You got to go, man, Milwaukee. You got to look over here, some. So first I wasn't trying to hear it. And then I went to the seminar, and they literally took a property from Milwaukee, where I'm from, and being like, look, this is an example of a great deal, and broke it down verbatim. I was so embarrassed. Like, man, I've been living here all my life, and I drove by this property 20 times, never thought about it. And there's people that's not even from here that see the opportunity in it. So I get back to my hotel room. I call my realtor. I'm like, yo, deal is off. I don't want it. I don't care if they earn this money back. I'm not buying this building. It's a bad deal. And I started to look for those other kind of buildings. And that's kind of how I found my triplex, my second triplex.
So then that put you up to 6 properties right there. So you mean to tell me you only get in charge of what, 3 buildings with Wow. Okay. See, and that's one of the things that that's always thrown me off a lot sometimes when people say like, yeah, I got like 50 doors, and it'd be like 2 properties. Like, I'll say your mortgage really isn't that bad,
right?
When you think about it. Man, that is cool. So in other words, what you're saying is start go down and just buckle down and pay for those classes that come out.
Yeah, I mean, if of course, make sure they're credible. Like, don't just be some sponsor ad popped up on your thing, and now you got an Airbnb mentor that don't even got Airbnbs. But if you find they credible and you really can vouch for, what they're saying is actual factual, you might want to pay that cost to get into those rooms, because that that information might take it to the next level. And just, it wasn't just the information, it was just seeing how they moving. Like, yo, we on a private plane, like, I'm from Milwaukee, like, it's not common. And it wasn't even about like the flex. It's just like, dang, this is somebody else's real everyday life. And it's like, if you put your head down to work, it could be you too.
So it sounds like you only put in for, like, you really dove in for 2 years straight, listening to 80 different podcasts. I can only imagine how many hours, because most of those podcasts that you listen to, especially with bigger podcasts, they're about 45 to an hour each.
Oh, it got me through the workday. So
Right.
tax season, I'm working 60 to 80 hours and it gets boring and they're not talking about nothing fun. Right. So I'm going to play these 4 podcasts. They're about 2 hours each. I'm going to play 2 of them, then take my break. Then I'm going to play 3 more if I work a 10-hour day. So it got me through the day and it kept me motivated to actually do the work because I knew it would lead to me being able to invest, more importantly.
So when it comes to studying podcasts, when you listen to it, what is it that you take notes on? Because I notice a lot of people, when they do education, everybody take notes differently. Like for me, I do like little one-liners. I know people hate one-liners, but I actually enjoy them because it's something that will stick. And so I try to write those down. So what is it that you do when you listen to the podcast?
I take mental notes. I take mental notes of what went right and why it went right and what went wrong and how the person could have prevented it. Like I like listening to organic stories because I don't like I hated my job 1, 2, 3. Now I'm retired. Like I can't relate to that. That's not what happened with me. So I don't even know how that happens. Right. So, I like listening to, just the ups and downs and everything. It's just, where it went right, where it went wrong, and kind of applying that to myself. Like, okay, if you do this, just don't do that, or, don't do that, or just do it like this. So I like taking mental notes as far as what I can use in my life going forward.
Okay. So when it comes to, especially with property and stuff like that, when it comes to taxes, obviously you'd probably more than likely doing your own taxes. But for somebody that's getting their property, what are your best questions that somebody should ask when it comes to rental to get either a CPA or an accountant to do their taxes?
Have them print you out a Schedule E and keep that with you all year. So Schedule E is the schedule that lists how much rental income you have, the expenses on the property, and just like your net profit from everything. And kind of keep track of that the following year. Each month, just update each of the categories if there are, because sometimes you might not have a month where you have repairs, right? So I would just say, just look at a Schedule E and just know how that looks. Like you might not have to know the whole tax return, but if you're specifically doing rental property, just know how that looks. And another thing I will say is the reason why real estate is so incentivized is because it's not taxed the same. And let me explain to what I mean by that. When I got my first property, I think my net hold on. Okay, so I was cash flowing $1,000 a month, right? Mm-hmm. But once at the end of the year, you would think I had $12,000 of taxable income, but that's incorrect. There's something called depreciation, which, like, if you buy a car that's worth $10,000 today, in a year it might be worth $5,000. So you got $5,000 in depreciation. Same thing with a house. It's just over the course of 30 years. So when it was all said and done, and I wrote off my depreciation, you're able to write off expenses. So if something goes wrong, you have to fix it. You're able to deduct that from your potential taxable income. So when it was all said and done, I didn't pay no tax on that money because I had my depreciation and my expenses. But to correlate that to W-2 language, you would probably have to get, so that was $12,000 net a year. To net $12,000 a year to W-2, you probably got to gross $18,000. 18, 17,000, depending on your tax bracket and what you have withholding. So that's the power of real estate. You don't have to make as much to take home as much.
See, it's always levels to taxes, man. Because I swear I need to bring back on because it's coming up on tax season again and closing out of the year. And people are starting to look into the tax episode that I did for like it was about 2 hours long. And that has almost like 200 views already just in 2 hours. And I'm like, man, people really want these taxes done. So, I mean, if you want, I mean, we might have to bring you back on just talk about.
Oh, yeah, man. I mean, honestly, that's kind of what led me into real estate, because you got to realize, as an accountant, I work on every business as far as, I see the year end. When I do your taxes, I see what you did all year. I know what you did in May. I see you how much your sales dropped in July, all that kind of stuff. So it's like one time I was doing somebody's taxes and they ended up on the W-2 side, it said about 13,000, which is what you get for your 9 to 5. And then it's called Schedule B, which is for your interest and dividends. And it was like $13. So we at 13,650. I'm like, why are we doing their taxes? Because we charge a lot. We're an accounting firm. Right. Then I get to the Schedule E, and it said $196,000. And I'm like, oh, snap. So the thing that I had in mind was I talked to my manager because you got to realize I'm staff level. I don't speak to these clients. I don't have a relationship with them, but the manager does. So I asked him, I said, hey, when you speak to these clients and you realize like, you know, you might be smarter than them. You might have more information than them. Do you ever think you could do this as well? And he said something to the cliche of, well, we're accountants and they're real estate people, saying it as in you can't do both. And, you know, I'm a rebellious person. So I'm like, man, F that. I'm doing both.
There you go.
And I started to research his stuff even more to kind of see what he did to get to that level and how he operated at that level. So I don't know, being an accountant is kind of like the cheat code to business because you see everything for what it is.
Man, I didn't even think about this. I didn't even know about a Schedule E. So you got a Schedule B. You said there's a E.
Interest and dividends.
Okay. And then what was the other one?
It was A, B, C, D, and E. But E specifically, I know it's gonna be a lot everybody taking it, but E is for rental property. So if you think about getting rental property, search Schedule E and look at it.
All right. And then because for businesses, what is it Schedule K is like if you're in it? I think I get those.
You know, K1 is like if you're in a partnership and it's like you own 50% and then they own 30%, and then if you had net profit of 100,000, you 30%, it'll show the 30,000 and other things you contributed. So it can get complex, and I don't know if I'm at that level where I can break it down into the simplest form because it's not simple.
It's not at all.
But
I might just show my Schedule K one time, because it's a lot that comes in. I always call it a Special K form because I always thought Special K like the cereal. That's the only way I can remember it. But man, so. All right, everybody, you heard it. Make sure you just Google Schedule E and just look at that joint. Really dive into it because I really think that will be something interesting to see. Now, does the Schedule E change from state to state?
Same thing across the board. It's gonna have rental income and then housing expenses. So depreciation, repairs, trying to think going further, but that's pretty much what it's a summary of. It's just a summary of the rental income and the expenses on that said property.
All right. If you don't mind, I can see if I'm actually trying to pull it up now to make sure we got this on here. This is a 2020 form. I just went to the IRS website. Let me see if I can share my screen. Mm-hmm. All right. Let me know if you can see that.
Yep, I can see it.
All right. So with the Schedule E, this is the one?
Yep. So if you see category A,
yep,
you will list the rents that's received, and below are the expenses. So you got advertising, cleaning and maintenance, insurance, management fees. So if you have property manager, you can deduct that from against the rental income. Mortgage interest paid to banks. So when you pay your mortgage on it, it's split between principal and interest. And the good thing about it is the first couple years, majority of those payments that you make towards the mortgage is like 95% interest, which is really a tax incentive because you can use that amount that you paid in interest to offset your rental income.
Now that's the key. That's key. So even with the repair, all this stuff right here is it's like tax deferrables almost.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
So it's like why?
So it's like
everybody should be out here with a tax.
So on paper, you can literally have $40,000 worth of income, but it's like if you got those expenses, those management fees, those interest, and mortgage interest and depreciation, you can really write it to the point where you won't have any taxable income. And just to go a little deeper, I'm gonna just say this last thing. I don't want to go over your head. But a lot of times what high income earners do is if they have a big portion of income, let's say, right, potentially taxable income, and let's say they're in real estate, they could buy a building and change the depreciation method they do for the year. So let me go deeper into that. If
And
I
this
bought
is
100,
number 18.
right? So if let's say I bought a building that was $100,000, right? Typically, the asset life is 30 years, which would be 30 divided by 100,000, which is $3,000 a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes what they do is they accelerate the depreciation. So they might do 5 years. So at 5 years, you at $20,000 a year in depreciation. So now they're able to write off more of their income,
right,
and pay less in taxes.
Yeah, that right there, man. I'm about to start just going. I'm like, after this call, I might have to start making some phone calls. This is crazy. So in other words, and this is why I always try to tell people, it's like you have to master your taxes because you leave so much money on the table if you don't. Or find a good accountant.
It's people that really have properties that don't even take into depreciation. So they're paying extra tax on their rental income when the whole time it could almost be non-taxable if you include depreciation.
Now, how is it depreciating when every time you go in, you got to pay more in property taxes? And they always say that, your property taxes went up this year, even though you might have just kind of cut the lawn, you put some paint on it and so forth. So is that really depreciation or is that really added value?
Well, it could be, but it's just called, it's an asset, and every asset has a useful life.
Got you.
As in terms of which the IRS deems it being worth something. So a car, it might be 5 years. A computer might be 7 years. Furniture might be 10 years. And real estate is usually, I think, 35 or 39 and a half, something like that.
Okay. Huh. So that means if I go buy a laptop, I got 7 years of depreciation to write off.
You could, depend on the price point. Now, I think there's a threshold in which your asset was and what you can capitalize or not. Now, I think if it's under 5,000, you cannot capitalize it and depreciate it over time. But if it is above a certain amount, yeah, you can. So me, for example, I bought a property this year, and I bought a couple fridges, stoves, and a washer and dryer, and it totaled up to be under $5,000. But according to the IRS, if you pay for appliances and they're under $5,000, you get to deduct that from your rental income. You can expense it. So I will literally be able to put it as one of my expenses and offset it against my rental income.
Okay, and that'll be under under number 19.
Yeah, more than likely.
Oh, no, there won't be utilities. There'll be 19. Okay, so that makes sense. And then you just kind of list everything out here, like fridge, whatever, etc., appliances, and then man. See, yeah, we might have to go through this. This thing, because I'm almost at all, because I know a lot of people that do have rentals, but probably never even looked at this form.
Yeah, look at Schedule E.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to be into real estate, you need to know how it works on both ends and why it's so highly incentivized.
Right. Because you always hear everybody like, yeah, I just got these rentals, but they hear about the headaches, but never about the wins.
Right.
Or they'll hear more about the wins than the headaches. So it depends on who you talk to, I guess.
Yeah. It's about talking to the right people.
Right. Man, that's all right. I'm just speechless right now because I'm like, when I need to talk to start getting my lender and start making these phone calls, because at the end of the year, if you think about it, they'll be able to get most of your returns from that point, right? Because majority, like you said, like 90, almost 95% of your first payment is going towards taxes. Then on top of that, you got to furnish the place. And then also if you need a roof on it or whatever.
Or repairs.
Yeah, that is crazy. So pretty much somebody can work part-time just to get health benefits at a regular 9 to 5.
There's a lot of people that does that already.
That's
exactly what they do, bro. They make
really?
4,000 or 5,000 passively from real estate. Well, whatever you want to deem as passively, but they make 4,000 or 5,000 a month passively through real estate, and they're able to write off the income, and they just get a part-time job just to have some health benefits. working 20 hours a week. While you might be looking at them like, man, what are they doing? They're working 20 hours a week. You only 33.
Right.
Whole time it's like they got it figured out. And taxes tell the story.
Man, the tax game is something that is something that's highly overlooked, but everybody is afraid of it. And I mean,
And
just
everybody
talking to
know a
you.
guy.
Yeah.
Everybody know a guy. It's crazy because I only do taxes for my family because
You
everybody
know?
know a guy. I'm like, okay, if he don't got that background and he don't, okay, cool, man. I just put my hands up, be like, okay, man, you probably not for me if you know I got a background in accounting. And
Right.
you still like, I'm gonna go with him, even though he's so and so cousin. I don't even know if he even went to school for this, but it's like,
Yeah. Gotta stay with family though. Like you're right that you're already doing it. You've been doing it for what, 10 years now?
yeah. I was just
It's like went to school for educated. We just went through the form right here. If a family member of you listening to this right now, I'm like, it's a no-brainer. I mean, just going through the form. Granted, everybody can read,
by the
but
time
it's
they
like,
listen, man, they'd already filed their taxes, man.
but
Too late, man. It's already
you're
filed,
late,
man. JoJo get them early, man.
right? Well, it's just all right to make this release before the year out. I don't know. I might have to do a bulk release or something.
For sure.
Man, it's crazy. All right. So that was fun for me. I take the education. That's great. So all right, now we can get to the full questions, unless there's anything else you want to dive into.
No, we good. I'm ready for the questions.
Okay. What does wealth mean to you?
Time freedom, location freedom.
I like that. What is your worst money mistake?
My worst money mistake. Not betting on myself earlier.
Okay. Can you give an example?
I would just say I wish I would have started in real estate way earlier. But I think it took time for me to grow and mature to realize, like, yo, you can really do this. But that's what I would say. Because if I would started earlier, I'd probably be retired right now, honestly.
Nice. What is, well, I actually questioned this wrong. So what is your favorite financial book or non-financial book?
I'm gonna give you a podcast, man.
Okay.
Because I'm a podcast junkie. I like Tweet Talks and I like Money Monopolizers.
Okay.
I know everybody usually give you the book, the
Yeah.
Robert Kiyosaki and all that, but I'm not gonna lie. I feel like every 5 podcasts I listen to is like a book. That's like a book right there.
Yeah. The book that I usually recommend for finance, I mean for real estate, is The Rental Property of Investing by Bigger Pockets. I'm not sure if you saw that one yet.
Oh, yeah, I see it. I think I can.
This one.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you I go a little further. So with this book, I actually liked it because it does walk you through some of the mindset shifting, but also kind of give you a little bit of some practical ways to they call it properties. Figure out like your comps and understand like, hey, this property is worth purchasing. This one is worth getting into. Because I was actually looking at a property that didn't cash flow meet the 1% rule. And I was like, but it's a property, it's an asset. And I guess looking at this the Schedule E form, like, it's a no-brainer. I'll take the loss there and just write off everything else. Makes sense.
Pretty much.
Yeah. What is your favorite dish to make?
Dish as in cook?
Yeah.
Cereal. Yeah, I'm still at that point, man. I just gave you all this real estate information,
Right.
all this tax information, and I still cereal, man. I ain't never growing out of it, man.
I actually just had a bowl this morning.
That's what I'm saying, man. Let's be honest, man. That's the first
Right.
thing that come on your brain when you wake up, man. What is cereal?
Yeah,
You ain't got no cereal in the morning, man. Your day starting off wrong. You eating toast, like, man, what's going on, man?
right.
So yeah.
What's your go-to box?
Oh man, cinnamon toast crunch.
Okay.
For sure, or Fruity Pebbles.
Nice. I just had honeycombs, so it's like,
yeah,
honeycombs in a long time.
Life ain't too bad when you walk in there and see them 3 boxes, man. Like, you know what? I'm gonna be all right. I got me through a lot of stuff, man.
One box at a time.
One box at a time, man.
Oh man. So where can people find out more about you on the internet?
Okay, you can follow me on Instagram at 925 Landlord 414 or on Facebook at Tramaine Homes, TRAMAINE space HOMES, and LinkedIn at Tramaine Robinson. But preferably, I'm more active on Instagram than anything, just because I'm always putting content on there.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Thank you so much, Tramaine, for your time, your energy, and definitely letting the people know about how they can actually start turning their properties into cash flowing assets. So again, everybody, this is the About That Wallet podcast. I'm your host, Anthony, where we always are helping you build strong financial behaviors. All right, everybody, stay safe. Peace.